broadcasting live from the second floor of the Thornhill Community Shul. We're doing Parshas Vayetze, which in our blue chumash is on 144 and 145. What's wrong? You got the wrong week? You're already a week ahead of us, huh?
Week ahead.
That means it's almost Hanukkah for you. I hope you bought your presents.
Yes, and I wrapped them already.
Wow.
On top the pigs, you see?
We had people at our conference from Costa
Rica?
Costa Rica, yeah. And they spoke funny.
Yeah.
Spanish. And Mexico, too. There were people from Mexico. Asia Torah of Mexico. All right, enough of that. We're on Vayetze Yaakov Bereshis Yelech Haruna. So Yaakov leaves home, right, and he goes. Vayivka b'makom v'yalin sham. Now, he gets to a place, it says, and he lays down there. Kiva Shemesh, it's getting to be sunset. Vayikach mi'avnei hamakom, and he took from the stones that were laying around, v'yasam rosasav, and he put the stones around his head. Vayishkav makamahu, and he laid down. So what does this mean? So Rashi says that Yaakov was traveling, and he realized that that he found himself at the Temple Mount. Now he doesn't even mention that he knows this yet. It won't really be understood until the morning when he wakes up. But he's on the Temple Mount. Now the Temple Mount, we realize, is not just the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount in Jerusalem is where Adam was created. That was the location. It's where Isaac was offered as a sacrifice, and it's now where Yaakov is sleeping. Right? There are many things happen in this same place. So Yaakov goes and he lays down, it says, and he puts these stones around his head. Rashi wonders what's the purpose of the stones. Why should he put stones around his head? So Rashi says it's because he's trying to keep away wild animals. That animals might come and bite him. So he puts stones around his head to keep them away. Now, I don't have much of an answer for this, but that doesn't sound like a very good answer because, I mean, you go to a zoo, what do you see animals doing? Climbing stones, right? Big deal. You want to tell me he's laying down and let's say, what would you have there? You could have a fox maybe, right, in that part of the country. So you have a fox. A fox is not going to get stopped by a little stone. He's just going to crawl over the stone if he wants to do something. So I'm not really sure why that is the case, but I'm sure that there's an answer. But there are other problems that come up. See, first it says that he took stones, right? Avnei amakom. Avnei is plural, stones, right? And then it says, if we read on, it says he laid down, vayicholom, and he had a dream. Vihine sulam mutzav arza. He sees a ladder that is stuck into the ground. V'rosho magiel hashemayma, and the head of the ladder goes all the way up into the heavens. Vihine malchei Elohim olim v'yordim, and he sees angels of God going up and going down. Right. So the problem here, I haven't even answered the last question, but the next one that comes up is that so he has a dream and he dreams of a ladder, and the ladder it's stuck in the ground, and the top of it goes to heaven, and you have angels going up and going down. So one of the odd things about this is how would an angel go up and go down? An angel would go down and go up. An angel comes from heaven, so he would come down to earth and then he'd go back. Like if you have a round trip. You want to go to New York. You don't say, I'm starting in New York. You say, I'm starting in Toronto, go to New York, and I go back to Toronto. So an angel starts in heaven, goes down to earth, and goes back up to heaven. So this now what it says here. It says the opposite. Then it goes on. V'hine Hashem nitzov elav v'omar Ani Hashem Elokei Avram, and Hashem is there, and he says, I am God, the God of Avraham, your father, and of Yitzchak. And the land that you're laying on, has been given to your offspring. And your offspring will be like the dirt of the land. And they will spread out east, west, north, and south. And within you will be blessed. The whole world will be blessed through you, and your children. So here again, he's having this dream, and in the dream, God comes to him, and God says to him that you are going to have children, and your children will be as plentiful as the dirt of the land. So of course, he's saying that you're going to have a lot of kids, right? It'll be as plentiful as the dirt of the land. But we have to wonder, like, couldn't you pick a better metaphor? Like dirt of the land. It's like, you're going to have so many children that you're going to have more. Your children are going to be like the ants ants eating a donut that got thrown in the garbage. Right? Oh, well, that's a nice thing. That's how I'm going to have so many children like ants who eat a donut. Right? The dirt of the land. Say it's like the stars of the heaven. Say the sand of the sea. Right? But so there's got to be a reason for that, which we'll mention. V'hine anochi imach, and I am with you, ushmarticha, and I will guard you, v'chol asher telech, anywhere you'll go. V'heshu v'sicho elo adama hazos ki, and he says, and I will keep you in this land, and I will guard you, and I will not forget you. As I've told you, V'yaketz Yaakov Mishnah. So when Yaakov wakes up, V'yomer Achein Yesh Hashem Makom Hazeh, he says, well, God must be in this place. V'anochi lo yadati, and I had no idea. In other words, this must be the place where Adam was created, where Avraham offered Yitzchak, and I didn't realize this is the special place. V'yor, and he was afraid. V'yomer Manor Makom Hazeh. How amazing is this place? Ein Zekiim Beis Elohim. This is the house of God, meaning this is where the temple will be built. And this is the gateway into heaven. V'yashkem Yaakov b'boker, and he got up in the morning. Vayikaf esa even. This is what I wanted to get to. And he picks up the stone, asher sam roshav, that was around his head. Now it changed. Before this said he put stones around his head. Now it says there was a stone around his head, and he used that stone as a altar. So before he took a bunch of stones and put them around his head. He wakes up in the morning, and those stones became one stone. Right? In other words, for some reason, God made a miracle, and he took all these stones and made them into one stone. And then Yaakov took the stone and used it as an altar to offer a sacrifice to God. So that's, you have to wonder, what's the purpose of God making a miracle that he takes 12 stones that are lying around him, the Medrash tells us it was 12, and he turns it into one. And what's the purpose? So let's answer some of our questions. Let's see what we can get out of this. So if we go back to the beginning where we said that Yaakov lays down and he puts stones around him. So as I said, it's explained that he put 12 stones around him. When he wakes up in the morning, there's one stone. So Rashi says, and it's quoted here, that the stones got into an argument. Each stone said, I want to be under the head of such a righteous person. Right? I don't want to just be a stone. I want to be a stone that's used for a holy purpose. Right? And stones fought with each other. So God said, okay, I'm going to make one stone out of all the stones so that all the stones will be under the head of Yaakov. Right? It's one stone. So he made a miracle. So, of course, we know stones can't talk. We know this is not literal. What is it telling us? So one thing is you'd think that really what it should be, not that one stone, that 12 stones should become one because they fought. Fighting is a bad thing. You don't want to have fighting, right? Especially, we're going to explain that the 12 stones symbolize his 12 sons. And here you have fighting among them, and so how does God punish them for fighting? He rewards them by making them one. Right? It doesn't seem like it's accurate. But what were they fighting about? What they were fighting about was they all wanted to serve God. Right? They don't say, I don't want you to serve God. They said, I want to be the one who serves God. I want to put I want to be the stone under the righteous man's head. Right? So they fought over a positive purpose. So we learn in the Pirkei Avos, in the Ethics of Our Fathers, that there's two types of arguments. There are arguments that are for the sake of heaven, and there are arguments that are not. Right? Arguments that are not. You get into an argument with somebody. They insulted me. They took my parking spot. They butted in front of me in line. Right? They insulted you somehow, and so you're mad at them. So you have an argument. Another one is an argument over religious observance in a positive way. I don't mean that, I say your religion is no good and you say my religion is no good. What I mean is I want to serve God and you want to serve God. There's only place for one person. So we both want to do it. So so there we'll have a disagreement, or we'll have a disagreement what is the best way to serve God. It doesn't mean that we have a disagreement that we fight each other. We can be the closest of friends, but we're arguing over a point of law, of Jewish law. But it's over a positive thing. So when you fight over a positive thing, you're not really fighting, you're just disagreeing. And therefore, in the end is that you'll be unified. And that's what we see with the stones. The stones were 12 separate stones, and they all became unified because they all wanted to accomplish a goal of something good. So Hashem went and said, I'm going to show that every one of them, right, deserves this, so I'm going to make them into one stone. So it's symbolic for us that when we have disagreements, most of our disagreements are over foolish things, over money, over our ego. Right? That's what we fight about. Right? They didn't invite me. They did invite me. They don't like me. They said this. They said that. Right? These types of things. But when you have and in those cases, those cause fights. You have families who like I see it all the time when I do funerals, I do weddings. Families that don't get along. Like you can have a funeral and you'll have two shiva houses because the two brothers don't talk to each other. Or you can have a wedding and the one brother won't invite his brother to the wedding. Or he'll invite him and he'll put him in the back. I mean, you have these things, right? Because there's some kind of fight. And if you ask them, they don't even remember what they're fighting about. But those are fights that have no positive purpose. But sometimes there are disagreements or fights, so to speak, using the word loosely, that have a positive purpose, that they are good. That when you have two people studying Torah together, you're going to have differences of opinion. They're going to have what we call the war of God. It's the fight of Torah, in order to see who's right. And then the end result is we come up with an answer of who's right, and we all agree. Well, we're not fighting each other because somebody insulted me. We both want the right thing. And in that case, that's what the Torah is telling us. That unites us. The ones that are over our ego, those cause us to fall apart. So here the stones argued over something positive, so God united them as one. So that's one of the reasons. Another one is that it says that there were 12 stones. Yaakov, right? It says when he had these 12 stones, it says that in the Medrash that my grandfather Abraham, he couldn't accomplish the goal. My father Yitzhak couldn't accomplish the goal, so I will accomplish the goal. What was the goal? That it was understood that the Jewish people would be made from 12 tribes. There'd be 12 tribes in the Jewish nation. And Abraham didn't have 12 children, and Yitzhak didn't have 12 children, so they couldn't fulfill the goal. Yaakov, on the other hand, will have 12 children. So how does he know? And how does he know to fulfill it? He says because he puts the 12 stones around his head, right? And God makes them into one. That is to say, we would think, well, he puts the 12 stones and God does a miracle to show you that you are going to be the one who has 12 children. But really, if that was the case, what he should have done is put one stone under his head, and he'd wake up and he'd find 12. And not the other way around. Right? It's saying the opposite. But this also is the idea that the Torah wants us to understand that he would have a miracle. He would have 12 sons, and they would come from him. But ultimately, they would be united. They'd be one. So that's an important thing, because he says that, for instance, God comes and blesses him at this time. What did he do that he gets a blessing? He was sleeping. Why should God bless him? So he says because when Yaakov had an understanding that when he had these 12 stones, right, that they were all separate from one from another, right, and he would have 12 tribes and they're all separate one from another, but ultimately all 12 tribes would be unified as one tribe, as the Jewish people. And he says, and that's why he says here that the Jewish people, God blesses him, the Jewish people will be a goy gadol, a great nation. Goy gadol literally means a giant nation. And now you know that this is not true. The Jewish people are not a giant nation. They've never been a giant nation. That in of itself is miraculous, right? If we have been here so long, the Jews have lived in the world so long, you think we would be the biggest nation in the world. We'd be bigger than the Chinese because we've been around so long, then we would multiply, we'd be bigger. But yet, no matter how long we're around, we're still a small nation. So what does it mean when God says you'll be a goy gadol, a great nation? So what is in order to understand it, we have to understand what the word gadol really means. Gadol means big, but when it refers to a human, it doesn't mean big. It doesn't mean that a person is like a big 6'6", right? He's a big guy. Gadol here means that the person, right, the person is a giver. The person cares about others. How do we know? Because it says whenever you want to know the meaning of a word, you find the first place that word is said in the Torah and see what it means there. So the first time you find the word gadol in the Torah is when it talks about the sun and the moon. It says the sun was great, was gadol. So we know the sun is giant, right? But what does the sun do? The sun gives. It gives heat. It gives light. It doesn't take anything. It's a source. It is an amazing source of energy that is just there, right? It gives. It's giving. It's giving. The moon's not like that, but the sun is constantly giving, and that's a sign of what is a gadol. A gadol, it says, is a person who sees himself as a giver to the Jewish people. Right? everyone should be a giver. But what makes you a great person, that makes you a great giver, is that you see yourself as a giver to others. I don't mean giving money. Money is a part of it. Giving your time, giving your tears, giving your sweat, giving your love. All of these things are giving. And a great person is like that. Like you say Moshe. Right? Moshe grew up in the palace of Pharaoh. Right? He could have been a corrupt guy who had, a nice mattress, nice pillows, his servants to do everything. He could be like Arthur in the movies, right? He wakes up, he's got a butler, brings him a drink, right? He's drunk by 9 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't have to do anything. He can just get up and play with his model trains all day. But what Moshe says that as soon as Moshe grew up, and he went out among his people. Moshe grew up. He left the house of Pharaoh, and he went among the Jews. So what does it mean? He went around he went like to do that because he grew up. He became gadol. He became great. What made him great is that he went among the Jews and he felt for them. He felt their pain. He didn't have to. He could have stayed in the castle, but he felt for them, and that's what makes gadol. So when God says the Jewish people will be a goy gadol, will be a great nation, it means they'll be a nation of givers, a nation that cares for each other. And therefore it's perfectly logical that the 12 stones should become one, because that's what givers do. Givers cause people to become unified. Right? If I give to you, we become friends, we become close, right? Because I'm giving to you. And we have an attachment. If I give you, let's say I come to you and I give you a gift. It's your birthday, and I go out and I buy a $200 pen, and I give you one. Every time you use that pen, right, I see how you appreciate it. I feel affection for you. I feel a little bit of ownership with you because I gave you this pen and you like it and you show me you appreciate it. The fact that you show me you appreciate it makes me feel affection for you. And therefore we become united through my giving to you. So the more a person gives, the more a person feels a relationship. It's like when we have children. I say it all the time. Having children is the craziest thing that we do. Okay? Because why would we do this? You have a child and they'll wake you up in the middle of the night because their diaper's wet. They don't care that you've been up for days. They don't care. The diaper's wet. The whole world can wake up for all I care. I got to have my diaper changed, right? And that's when they're young. When they get older, it's worse, right? They get older, they do all kinds of crazy things, and then in the end, they just forget about you, right? So, but you know what happens? Okay, so the first time you don't know better, right? But then we want another kid. Well, why would you want a second after the first one? You already know you have trouble. Why do you do it? Because the reason is because we want to give. That's what we want to give. We always hear from people, I want to have a child that'll have a better life than I did. So don't have a child. You don't have to worry about it. He won't have a worse life than you. Won't have a child. But why do you want to have a child that should have a better life than you? We have good lives, but we want it even better. Because the idea is that we want to give. That's what we want to do. We have it built inside of us. It's hardwired into our psyche. We want to give. And the best example of giving is giving to children. We give to them. Even if they don't appreciate it, even if they don't care, we still give. Right? Like I heard a speaker say recently, a woman gives to her children her whole life. She wakes up and changes their diaper. She takes care of them. He's sick, and they take care of him. A whole life, right? And the kid rebels, and he does all kinds of stuff. And he goes to get married, and he gives a speech at his wedding, and he says, I want to say hi to my friends, thank my friends for all the help they brought me to this day, and I want to thank my teachers who brought me, and then at the end he says, I want to thank my mother and my father. And his mother starts crying. Oh, you're so nice of you to remember me. After all that she did, right, she's just so happy that she says, I'd do it all over again. Right? That's how we are. That's givers. That's what we're referring to. That's a gadol. A great person does that with everybody, not just their family. A good person does it with their family. A great person does it with everyone. That's why a great rabbi is a person who is not necessarily the greatest scholar, and you should be a scholar, and a great scholar is worthy of respect. But in my opinion, a great rabbi is a rabbi who cares about the people who come to him, because that's really what we need. That's what we look for. Right? That's the greatest leader of all time in Judaism was Moshe. He was the greatest leader, and what really was he known for? Yeah, he gave the Torah, he split the sea, but what he's known for is that he could have said, forget it. He was living in Pharaoh's house. He could have had a party every day. He could have had all the women, the wine, everything he wanted. And then what does he do? He goes out with the slaves, and he starts acting like a slave, right? And to the point where the Pharaoh's going to kill him. right? Because he's relating to the slaves. You imagine you have your father's the king, and you're hanging around with the slaves, right? Your father's going to be upset with you. So, but that was what Moshe did, because Moshe was great. So here God tells Yaakov, you're going to have a great nation. And then you see in the whole world, you have 2 billion Chinese and all different types of races and wonderful cultures and great people, but there are enormous numbers of them, right, in the world. But do they have that same feeling of unification? Like if a Chinese person in Canada hears about a Chinese person who's in, let's say, Thailand on vacation and gets hurt, do they feel pain? Maybe, but probably not. A person who was born in Italy, right, and moves to Canada, and they have children, so they were never in Italy, and an Italian person gets let's say there's a volcano in Italy. Is that Italian person going to feel for everybody there as much as you and I would? Right? You feel bad, but he's not going to feel because he's Italian. But with a Jew, you put a Jew's name in the newspaper, and what happens? We all get embarrassed. Why would we get embarrassed? Every time they write in the articles, right, about with the Palestinians, and they say, a woman and a child were killed, right? So we feel bad, right? We didn't kill them. We're not even Israelis. We don't even live there. We don't have any choice. We don't drop bombs, right? And that's not to say that it's first thing that it's true. It's probably not even true, and it very well could be that it's because the terrorists used the woman and child as a shield, right? And it was their fault. Nevertheless, we feel bad, right? Madoff gets arrested. We feel bad. Why am I embarrassed if Madoff gets arrested? I have nothing to do with Madoff. He wouldn't talk to me. If I would go see him, he wouldn't even let me in the door. But I feel bad. Because that's what it means, a great nation. Goy Gadol means a nation of Gadols, of people who give, who care, who are united. And therefore, it's perfectly logical that the 12 stones should be one. Because they were 12 unique individuals and 12 unique tribes. And we are all unique people, that we all have that unification that brings us together. So that's what that's saying there. Now, when he sees this ladder, so first thing is, what is that? The Torah tells us he has a dream of a ladder. It's like, I have a dream of a sawhorse. I have a dream of a hammer. What do you? Every Jew for the history of the world needs to know. I had a dream of a hammer. What do we care? He has a dream of a ladder. Let him have a dream of something special, something important. He had a dream of the Jewish people, making the world better. He had a dream of the Jewish people getting the Torah. The Jewish people coming out of Egypt. He has a dream of a ladder. Right? It's sort of anticlimactic. So they tell us that a ladder is an important thing. In the foundation of Jewish life, we need to know that our life is like a ladder. What's a ladder? A ladder is a tool. But if you have a ladder in your house, it could be furniture, right? But the fact is, nobody sits on a ladder, right? You have a ladder sitting in your house. Who sits on it? Let's say there's a workman working in your house, right? And at 5 o'clock, he leaves. He leaves the ladder there. So the next day, he doesn't have to bring it in, because he's coming back to finish the work. So you're in the room. Are you going to sit on the ladder? Nobody sits on a ladder, because a ladder is to either go up or go down. Right? That's what it's for. It's not for sitting. And it's a message. God is telling us that in the spiritual world, you are either going up or you're going down. There is no standing still. You can't say, I need a break. I need a vacation. I got to take a couple days off. Not that there's no such thing. There is such a thing as taking a vacation. But even when you're in vacation, you don't hang your yarmulke up and say, I'm not going to be Jewish for a couple days. In other words, in the spiritual world, either you are going up in your level, you're doing better, or by definition, you're going down. There is no standing still. And that's why he dreams of a ladder. And why did he dream of the angels going up and then down when the angels should be coming down and then up? Because he's not. There's two types of angels that we can understand. First thing you have to understand, what is an angel? It's not a little pot-bellied guy in a diaper, right, who flies around like Cupid with a bow and arrow. That's not our idea of what an angel is. An angel is the following. The Talmud says, a blade of grass will not grow unless an angel pulls it up. So what does that mean? It means that God has control over everything. Right? God, when your grass grows, God wants it to grow, so it grows. That's what happens. So how does God's will cause the grass to grow? So when let's say you want to plant a flower, right? So what do? You think about it, and then your hand does it, right? So what's God's hand? When God thinks, I want the grass to grow, what's God's hand? What makes it grow? Like just we have a hand that pulls it up, right, physically. So what does He do? So God doesn't have a body. So God's will, God's thoughts cause something to happen. Our thoughts don't cause anything to happen. Right? Our actions cause something to happen. God's thoughts cause something to happen. The vehicle that is used for God's thoughts to cause something to happen is called an angel. That's the word we use. An angel is the will of God manifest in the physical world. So when God says, I want this, I want that this tree should have blossoms, so an angel makes the blossoms. What is an angel? It's not an independent thing. It's the will of God. It's your hand. You want that tree should have blossoms, so you go and you put blossoms on the tree. Your hand has to do it. God's hand is an angel, right? So again, then an angel will be coming down from heaven because God's in heaven, and He'd be sending the angel to the world, right? That's what it's here for. But there's other type of an angel, and that's an angel that when we do the will of God, we create the angel. In other words, God says, I want you to let's say, put on tefillin. So I put on tefillin, so I'm doing the will of God. So I create an angel by doing the will of God, and that angel starts here, and he goes up. Right? So what it's saying the following: if you want to be a spiritual person, you have to know, number one, it's not, you can't say to me, I'm a Jewish in my heart. I'm Jewish in my heart. I feel Jewish. You have to do Jewish. Right? That's the first thing. You have to do it. Right? Like a ladder. Nobody sits on a ladder. You're either going up the ladder or you're going down the ladder. You take your pick. You want to get better spiritually, you go up the ladder. You don't try. You just say, I'm taking a break. You are going down. That's what you're doing. You're not standing still. And that's our idea. You're either getting better or not. That's a very important Jewish belief, right? That you have to do it. And the angels represent the fact that when I do something that's the will of God, I create the same spiritual force that God creates when He does it. God gives me the ability to create that force so that I can play a role in the spiritual world. Not just for me, that I'm more spiritual, I have a greater spiritual life, but I'm changing the world spiritually because there's an angel created now because of what I did. So that's what Yaakov sees. And in the end, when he wakes up, right, he wakes up with a realization that he is going to be the father to the Jewish people. Well, you know Abraham is and Isaac is also, but the direct father. What we call, there's an expression we find in Aramaic that Yaakov is referred to as Yaakov the grandfather, because he's our grandfather. Right? Abraham is our patriarch, but all of us come from one of the 12 tribes. So therefore, the sons of Yaakov had children, that's us. So Yaakov's our grandfather. That's the idea, is that everyone came from Yaakov. So it's perfectly logical that the 12 stones should be united into one, because the Jewish people are united as one, understanding how the ladder works with the angels. And that's the point of why it says. So then why does God say then you're going to be not only blessed as a great nation, but you're going to be blessed that you're going to be as plentiful as the dirt of the ground? But we already learned earlier with Abraham, God says you're going to be as plentiful as the stars of the sky. Right? God says to Abraham, go outside. Right? Go outside. Abraham goes outside. He says, count the stars. Abraham starts counting the stars. He says, so too will be your children. Just like the stars are countless, you can't count the stars. There's so many, you can't count them. So are your children. Your children are also countless. Then here he comes to Yaakov and he says, your children are going to be as countless as try counting the dirt. Go pick up a handful of dirt and try counting all the little pieces of dirt. You can't, right? What's the difference between the stars and the dirt? The stars are each one separate, unique. You count them separately. The dirt, you can't count it because they're all bunched together. It's one thing. So before God says to Abraham, every Jew is a star. Every Jew has a unique personality, unique needs, unique gifts. They're good. They have goodness about them. They have, but everyone's different. Every one of us is different. Right? That's important. that we are not cookie cutters. We're not all the same. We don't dress the same. We don't look the same. We're different. We think differently. The Talmud says just like our faces are different, our mind is different. Right? We are different people. Right? And therefore, we're like stars. We're countless. We're the Jewish people, but each one of us is a shining diamond in the sky, different than every other one. On the other hand, we are also unified. There are also times where we say, even though we're all different from each other, we're all the same. We're all one. Right? When you have a time like now where Israel is at war, right, it enters in our minds, maybe I should go there and help. Maybe I've got to say prayers. Maybe I should give money. We all want to do something, right? Why? Because we all feel like part of one. Like someone picked up a bunch of dirt and squeezed it, and you have one piece now. So on one hand, God is saying to us, just like there are countless stars, there's countless dirt. Your children will be countless. There will always be Jews. However, Jews as individuals are important. Each one is different. But there are also times when the Jews have to be part of a team. They have to forget their differences and unite as one. That's the dirt. So when do they unite as one? That's where the whole symbolism here. Just like the 12 stones become one, the Jews become one. All of the Jews become one. So that's why God uses that expression here, even though it's not a very nice expression, we would think, right? But it's an important one. So then it goes on, and you have here what seems to be a business deal. On 147, it says, and verse, if we look at the English, it'll be easier for you. It says, then Jacob took a vow. So he makes an oath. What does he say? If God will be with me, will guard me on this way that I'm going, will give me bread to eat and clothes to wear. So he's saying like this, all right, God, let's make a deal. If I have to go now to the house of Lavan, that's where he's going. He says, if you go with me, right, you take care of me, you guard me, right? And you make sure I have food and I have clothes. Right? So that's what I'm asking. That's your part of the deal. And I return in peace to my father's house, and I can go back at the end. And Hashem will be a God to me, and you'll be my God. You'll be there for me. Then this stone, which I set up as a pillar, shall become a house of God. Then what I'm going to do, this stone, which was all the stones that are now one stone, I'm going to make it into a pillar, and eventually it's going to become the Beis HaMikdash. The temple will be here, and whatever you will give me, I will tithe to you. And then anything that you give me, 10% I give. Right, as charity, because that's what you want me to do. So here you see he's making a business deal with God. And you say, is that how we're supposed to be? All right, God, look, I'll pray 3 times a day. You make me a millionaire. That's my deal. All right, God, my mother's sick. You make her better. I'll give charity. Right? Where do we get off making such a deal? We already owe him everything. God gave us life. God gave us everything we have. So who am I to make a deal? It's like my 6-year-old grandson comes to me and says, all right, Zadie, we're going to make a deal. Right? Every time I come over, I'm going to shake hands with you, and every time I come over, you give me candy. Okay, that's the deal, right? What kind of a deal is that? Right? Who do you think you are? You're a little 7-year-old. I'll give you candy if I want to give you candy, and if you don't want to shake my hand, you're going to have to do it anyways. I'll make you. Right? Well, of course, we don't talk that way, but in other words, who are you to make a deal with me? Right? Who am I to make a deal with God? So here you see Yaakov does such a thing, and this is to tell us that and I purposely misled you in how I said it. See, Yaakov never says, God, I'm going to follow the commandments, and you owe me. He doesn't say that because we have to do that. He says, I'm going to go beyond. I'm asking you to take care of me, which God already says he'll do, and in your doing so, I'm going to then dedicate this for you. It's like I say, God, my mother's not well. I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to do, regardless. But I'm going to give $10,000 to charity if you make my mother better. So then if he makes my mother better, I'll give it. If he doesn't, I won't. Right? That's perfectly allowed. That's allowed. That's what we learn from this. Why? Because you're not saying, God, I'm going to, if you make my mother better, I'll keep Shabbos. So who are you to tell me that? You have to keep Shabbos already. I'm keeping you alive. You already owe me Shabbos. I'm keeping you alive. You already owe me that you won't eat pig. That's not a negotiable. What's negotiable? I'm going to do more. I'm going to do something special if you do this for me. That is to say that we're asking God to do an extra kindness for a positive purpose, and I will do an extra kindness. That we know from this story of Yaakov we're allowed to do, and therefore we have that when for instance every Shabbos here we make prayers for the sick. So what do we say? We say, God, please make this person better, and I will give charity. Right? If you don't give the charity, by the way, the prayer is a waste of time. You have to give the charity. Because what you're saying is not that I will give charity, I have to do that, but I will give this amount in charity to this cause on this day because if you make this person better. That we're perfectly allowed. That we're allowed to do. And that's what one thing we learn from Yaakov doing that. So then it says Yaakov lifted his feet and he went toward the land of the eastern. He looked and he sees a well. Now this is a very interesting story. Watch this story. It says Jacob lifted his feet. He went toward the land of the east. He looked and behold, there was a well. So imagine he's out walking to go to where he's got to get. Right? And on the way he sees a field and he sees a well. And there at the well there's 3 flocks of sheep. Right? There's 3 because what do? You bring your sheep. The shepherd brings the sheep to the well so they can get water, otherwise they'll die. Right? So they're there. They're sitting behind it. From that well, they would water the flocks. So the shepherds are there, sitting around with them, and because they want to water their flocks, but they can't. Why? Because a stone was over the mouth of the well that was very big, and they couldn't lift it. They couldn't take the stone off the top of the well because what it used to be is that in the old days, the ancients, when they owned a well, in order to show the ownership, like I dig a well. Right, in the desert, let's say I have land and I dig a well, so I should have water for my family and my animals, and I put a rock on top of the well, right, and that shows that's my well. And if you want water from my well, you got to come get me to take the rock off. You can't just go to my well; it's mine. Right, so here you got these guys, and there's a giant rock; they can't take it off. Right, so it says. When all the flocks would be assembled there, they would roll the stone. So the rule was when all of the shepherds came, they'd take the stone off the well, and then all the sheep would be able to drink. Then they'd put it back on, and off they'd go. So Jacob says to them, "My brothers, where are you from?" And they said, "We're from Haran." So he sees the shepherds. He says, "My brothers, where are you from?" And they say, "We're from the city of Haran." And he says to them, "Do you know Lavan?" Yeah, that's where he's going. And they said, "Sure, we know him." And he says, "Is he okay?" They say, "Yeah, he's okay. His daughter Rachel is coming now." Right? So you imagine this story. Yaakov is a stranger. Right? He's a stranger. He's walking in the desert. He comes across this oasis in the desert, and the guys who live in the area are at the oasis, and it's the middle of the day. So we'll update it. You and I are walking down the street in downtown. We see a bunch of guys, city workers, and they're working on the sewer. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They're sitting there drinking beer, right, and whistling at the girls. That's what they're doing, right? So I walk up to the guys and say, "Hey guys, how you doing?" "Oh, we're fine." "You know, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're supposed to. Why don't you go back to work? You know, it's not lunchtime, and you got to work 8 hours. You're working for the city. What are you doing?" So what do you think they'd say to me? They wouldn't say very nice things. Right? They'd yell at me. But Yaakov does that here. He says to them, "Hey guys, what you doing? Sitting around like this? Where are you from?" And they talk nice to him. What's the difference? Why did they talk nice to him? They wouldn't talk nice to me. So the difference is that what Yaakov says. Yaakov says to them, "My brothers." He speaks to them with dignity. He speaks to them nicely. They realize that he's not out to give them a hard time. He's interested. Why? It's not logical. Why would a strong man be sitting here on the ground doing nothing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? He says, "Of course you wouldn't. You're not lazy. It must be a reason." "Oh, because we can't get the rock off the well. That's why. We can't do our job. We can't water the sheep. So we can't do it." So that's the answers. So Yaakov speaks to them respectfully. They respond respectfully, right? And that's the point. Like sometimes people say to me, or I'll see, like I'm not a smoker, but if you find a person smoking, so a guy walks up down the street and says, "Stop smoking." Right? You see that, it happens, right? The guy smokes, the guy stops smoking. Do you think he's going to listen? Of course not. But you're going to say, "Oh, you're the first person to ever tell me that. I had no idea it was bad to smoke. Thank you for telling me. I'll stop right now." That's not going to happen, right? You see a guy in the street drunk, you say, "What are you drinking in the middle of the day? What's wrong with you?" And the guy he's going to say, "Oh, no one ever told me I shouldn't drink in the middle of the day. Thank you." Right? You see it. You see the bumper stickers. I found Jesus. So I'm driving by. Oh, nobody ever told me. Now, thank you very much for telling me. Now I found him. Right? Well, the fact is, none of that never happens. It never happens. And the reason it doesn't happen is you can't change a stranger. You can't. You can't affect a stranger. The only person you can change is somebody who you know. The only person that can change you is someone that you know cares about you. If you know they care about you, and they're saying this to you because they care about you, then you'll let them change you. You'll let them. You'll listen to them. But if you don't know that, it won't happen. It just won't. It'll only happen if you know that person cares about you. It's like, what's an effective doctor? You go to a doctor, right? Doctor says you got to lose weight. The doctor says you should quit smoking. Doctor says you need more exercise. Doctor says you should go and take this or take those pills. So if you just think that you're just another patient, another number to him, right? Even though you know you should do it, you don't listen. You know you should do it. He's not telling you for himself. He didn't weigh you and you're 50 pounds overweight, and he's telling you to lose weight because he wants to lose weight, or because he makes money off it. He's telling you to lose weight because that's his job, to tell you how to be healthy. But if you don't feel that he cares about you, you're not going to listen. The most successful doctors are not necessarily the smartest ones. The ones who have a very good bedside manner are the ones who are the most successful. The ones who, when you walk in, you feel that they are glad to see you. Maybe not glad to see you in their office because you're sick, but they're glad to see you, or they care about you. Or if you needed them, they would come. Like we have a lot of very good doctors here. One of the doctors I'm thinking of specifically, he will, it doesn't matter. If any one of you would call him on the phone and you'd say, "I know I'm not a patient of yours, but I'm really sick. I can't get out of my house. Can you help me?" I am telling you, there's no question in my mind, he would come to your house. I mean, he did it. And he does it. My own son got sick one time, and we weren't patients. My son didn't really have a doctor. I mean, he's a kid. So he's too old for a pediatrician. He was just starting to be old enough for an adult doctor. So he would go with me. He would go to this one. Right? He didn't really care. I mean, an 18-year-old kid who's healthy, what does he need from a doctor much? But he got sick, and we didn't know what it was. We thought it was a flu, or this, or that, and it was getting worse and worse. So we call right? So he's too sick to go to a doctor. He doesn't want to go out. So I called this doctor. He's not even his doctor. He comes to the house. He says I think he has a flu. So he gives him antibiotics, or whatever it is. He gives him antibiotics, and it gets worse. He says he doesn't. Right? So he calls him, come back. He comes back next day, and it turns out he had mono. And one of the ways you know is if you give them antibiotics, which should make it go away, they get worse, and it affects them somehow that way. So he would be able to know. But if he didn't come to my house like that, we wouldn't know. So my son says, "This is my doctor." Right? Even if he had made a mistake, my son would say, "He's my doctor," because he sees that this man cares about me. He comes to my house. He goes out of his way for me. He doesn't even know me. Right? That's what Yaakov's doing. Yaakov, by calling them my brothers, these are not his brothers, these are pagans, right? These are idol worshippers. But he's treating them with respect. He's saying, he's telling them we're the same, right? I care about you. I want you to be okay. Why are you not working? What's wrong? They answer him with respect, and that teaches us how we should deal with people in the same way when we speak to people. Right? There's a mitzvah in the Torah that says that if somebody is breaking the Torah, you should tell them that they're breaking the Torah and help them do the right thing. The real word is to reprimand them, but of course you can only reprimand someone if they know. If a person knows that you shouldn't drive on Shabbos, if they know that, so then if they drive on Shabbos, you can reprimand them because they know better. But a lot of people today don't really understand it. But even if you are going to reprimand someone, if it's your own child, or whatever it is, if you reprimand someone, I always say all the time, if you're going to be in a situation where you have the ability to talk to someone about improving their spiritual life, I said you have to make sure that you know their name and their spouse's name and their kid's name. If you know that much, at least there's a reason to think that maybe you can help them. But if you don't know that, you don't know anything about these people, then they're not going to listen to you. They won't listen. you've got to feel that there's a relationship. If that person thinks, you know why you're telling this to me? Because I'm another notch on your belt. You want to go out and say, in my life I made 50 people keep Shabbos. So I'm number 43. So you don't care about me. I'm just another number to you, right? So then they're not going to change. But if they really feel that you're affected by it, they'll change. They tell a story about the Chafetz Chaim, and I've heard this in so many different ways. So maybe it's not true, maybe it is, but it makes sense. It says that one day it was reported to him that one of the students in his yeshiva that he was running was smoking on Shabbos. This is 100 years ago. He was smoking on Shabbos, and of course you're not supposed to. So he asked could the boy be sent to see me. The Chafetz Chaim was a very short little man, like 4'10", right? And he was famous for his righteousness and his love for people and his intelligence. He wrote very, 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 very sophisticated books of Jewish law and philosophy. So he comes and he says, the boy comes in and the boy's scared to death. I mean, I got caught smoking on Shabbos. This is one of the greatest rabbis in the world, who's the head of my yeshiva, who wants to see me. I'm going to get thrown out. I'm in trouble. So he comes in, he takes the boy's hand, and he starts to cry. And he says to him, you have to keep Shabbos. Right? I've heard that you haven't, and God loves you. You have to keep Shabbos. And the boy. So the story was that years later, that somebody met this boy and they asked him about it, and he told them the story, and he said that his tears hitting my hand changed my life, because I saw that he was in pain because of what I was doing. Right? It's like we're in pain when our children do something stupid, right? And they do it. They have to do it. They won't listen to us. They do it, and it hurts us. Right? We feel in pain. Our child fails something. They don't accomplish something. They wanted to win a contest and they didn't win the contest. We feel pain just like they do, right? We feel it. If we feel that pain and we show them that pain, they know that we care, and they'll change for us. So this boy saw, the rabbi wasn't trying to show it, he was like that. That's what he was like. He cried because he felt this boy is killing himself. I have to help him. And there was nothing he could do, so he cried. And that's what did it. So that's what happens here. That's the story here. So we go on. We're not going to get to a lot of the important parts here, but he finally makes it to Lavan's house. Lavan is his uncle, right? His mother, Yaakov's mother, Rivka, has a brother named Lavan. Now, why is he called Lavan? Lavan means white. That's what it means, Lavan. So they say that the reason is because he was a very difficult character. He was like fraudulent, a confidence man, because he would smile at you, he'd show you his white teeth, and he'd stab you in the back. He wasn't like Asaph. Asaph was a tough guy. He was like dealing with the mafia. You know who you're with when you're with the mafia. You know that they can kill you in a second. This guy's your best friend, right? But he'll stab you in the back, right? That's Lavan. So Lavan is the guy who Yaakov comes. He works for 7 years to marry his daughter Rachel, and he switches girls on him. Right? He doesn't say I'm going to give you a different girl. He doesn't say I don't like you. He switches wives on the guy. Right? You imagine that's why he's called his name. That's his real name. But in the Torah, the names very much are obvious as to the personality of the person. And that's what happens. He comes. He sees Rachel. To Yaakov, Rachel and Jewish history, Rachel is the example of the perfect woman. Right? She was extraordinarily humble. She was amazingly intelligent. She was very pretty. She was modest. She was caring. Her personality exceeded her physical beauty, and her physical beauty was extraordinary. She was like an extraordinary person. And Yaakov sees her and realizes, this is my partner. This is the woman I can see immediately I'm going to live my life with. So he goes and he says, therefore, he works for her. Yet Lavan says, well, you have to have a dowry. Now, wait a minute, it's backwards. And we know what happens when a guy wants to marry a girl. And traditionally, the parents give a dowry. The girl's parents say, okay, you can marry our daughter, and here's some sheets, and here's some this, and here's some goats, and right, they give you stuff, you give her a dowry. But Lavan says, oh no, not by us. By us, it's the other way around. You want to marry my daughter, you got to pay me. right? So Yaakov had to work, because he had no money, he had to work for Lavan for 7 years, for free, right, in order so that he could marry Rachel. So he does, right, and that's what it says here on 151. Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, I'll work for you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. Now, the first thing in that statement in verse 18 is, why is he saying it like this? He says, so he saw Rachel, he loved her, and he says, I'll work for you for 7 years for Rachel. So why does he say Rachel, your younger daughter? And he doesn't say Rachel. How many Rachels does he have? He only has one Rachel. So the Torah says that this is an expression that we use a lot. When he says Rachel, your younger daughter, he is being specific because he knows who he's dealing with. And sometimes when you do business with somebody, you know that they're trying to trick you. So there's the small print. So you always have to make sure that you say this in a way, or even with your kids. Sometimes, my son will say, can I use a car tonight? And I'll say, I need my car and your mother's out. Right? So then his mother comes home. So he says, Dad, my father says, I can use your car. I didn't say use your car. I said, your mother's out. So when she comes home, you could ask her, but I didn't say that. So in my words, he's finding a way to get what he wants, right? That's how we're all like that a little bit, right? We all do that, and right? Lavan was famous for that. So Yaakov is dealing with him is like he's checking every detail. So he's saying he's using the expression we use it as a rabbinic expression. It's called Rachel Bita Katana, which means if I'm going to do business with you, I'm going to tell you I want to marry your daughter. Okay, I got 2 daughters. Rachel. Oh, Rachel? Yes, the younger one. Don't play with me. I want Rachel, your daughter, the younger one. He's very, very specific. So you can't say, oh, I thought you meant the older one. You just said the wrong name. I thought you meant his daughter Rachel, not my daughter Rachel. Right? No, I said your daughter Rachel, the younger one. There's no way to mess this up. Right? So that's why he uses that expression. And nevertheless, he switches. Right, because it says as it goes on, he works for her 7 years, and he says to her, "Bring me my wife. I've done the 7 years. I want to marry her." So he wants to make a party. The father was going to make a wedding. Now he makes a wedding, and it goes on, and then of course we find out that he marries the wrong girl. Now Yaakov was no dummy, and he, as you see from the words he uses here, that he knew something was going on. Right, that he was going to be tricked. So that the Talmud tells us that he told Rachel, when we're going to get married, I'm going to tell you some code, and this way I'm going to know it's you. Because when they got married, they were covered, right? You couldn't see them. Right? It's just like today, a woman when they gets married, rightfully so, should really be dressed very modestly in her wedding gown without being exposed, and they cover their face, right? So here, he doesn't physically, he can't tell who he's marrying. They're both sisters. They probably have some resemblance, and maybe a similar size, similar body shape. And so he tells Rachel, I'm going to give you a code. When I say this, you say this, and when I do this, you do that. Right? That's how you'll know. So now what happens is that the father comes, he switches daughters. Rachel realizes, my sister's going to be humiliated. Leah, right, who's being put in my place, right, it's like she's going to go and she's going to marry Jacob, and Jacob's going to do the sign, the code, and she won't know it. And in front of everyone, she's going to be humiliated. He's going to go, this isn't my wife. Get her out of here. What's wrong? You give me the wrong woman, right? So Rachel tells her the code. He tells her the password. She tells her the passwords, so that her sister shouldn't be humiliated. And here the Talmud says that Rachel was prepared to give up her husband to save her sister from being embarrassed. And it says this was a great act on her part.